sélectionné les meilleurs vins de Californie faits à la française, ainsi que quelques-uns de mes vins français préférés. Et dans le but d'être objectif, la dégustation ce sera à l'aveugle. Alors, je vous présente les juges. Monsieur Christian Vannequet, le sommelier de la Tour d'Argent. Monsieur Jean-Claude Vrina, propriétaire du célèbre restaurant Taïwan. Monsieur Pierre Bréjou, l'inspecteur général de l'AOC. Madame Odette Kahn, la rédactrice en chef de la Revue de vin de France. Monsieur Pietari, le secrétaire général de l'Association des grands crus classés. Monsieur Raymond Oliver, propriétaire et chef au Grand Vefour. Monsieur Claude Dubois-Millot, directeur des ventes à Gaumillot. Et Monsieur Aubert Devillain, copropriétaire du domaine de la Romanée Conti. La première place, avec un total de 132, revient au Château Montelena de Napa Valley, en Californie.
Mesdames et messieurs, ça fonctionne, mesdames et messieurs, j'ai le plaisir de vous présenter le véritable Beau Barrett. Monsieur Barrett, if you'd like to stand up. Merci d'être avec nous ici aujourd'hui. Comme vous le savez, un moment historique, hein, ce fameux jugement de Paris.
We love making wine. Thank you, Toronto. I'm sorry about that.
Je pense que c'est la journée où je vais en voir de toutes les couleurs, moi. Je commence à avoir peur à cet après-midi. Bienvenue à tous encore pour ce merveilleux repas, une merveilleuse dégustation avec une légende dans le monde du vin californien et du vin dans le monde. Merci à nos partenaires pour cette dégustation, le Fonds de solidarité FTQ et SSQ, groupe financier. Monsieur Barrett va prendre la parole pendant quelques minutes. Il va nous montrer un extrait de film auquel il tient beaucoup. Je vais vous le laisser vous expliquer. Do you understand a little bit of French?
N'est pas une bonne idée que je parle français.
On risquerait de dépasser un tout petit peu l'horaire.
Espagnol, si.
On aura le bonheur de déguster ces vins pendant le repas et de goûter un magnifique menu concocté par le chef Mathieu Cloutier de Kitchen Gallery. Et voilà, bien sur ce, Monsieur Barrett, je vous laisse la parole. I let you talk.
Okay. My job is I'm a producer and winemaker. I've been making wine for about 40 years in California, Napa Valley. And I actually I was a cellar worker in the 73 Chardonnay, and I've done every vintage ever since. So think about American winemaking being relatively new. That's not exactly true. Château Montelena was founded in 1882. And we have actually a long history. And we have a pretty good video because I know that I speak very rapidly. I use a lot of California jargon. And I'm not the easiest person to understand for the translation. So we have, I could talk for a couple hours to explain, the beautiful Napa Valley and Château Montelena and what we do, but trying to make you understand where we live and what we do. We have a video. It's produced by James Clure. He's a master wine, and we're using him because he's British, and we think you'll understand what he's saying better than I do. So if we could just roll the video, and that'll help to introduce Château Montelena in Napa Valley, where I live, why I relax, and why I have so much fun at what I do. I think this will really set the stage for the rest of the tasting. So let's roll the film if we can.
narrow it down, there have been just a handful of places, people, and events that put California on the world wine map. Château Montelena is unquestionably on that list.
This was actually built as a winery in 1882. It was completed in 1886. Took them 4 years to build it. And it was designed and built as, there was no refrigeration in those days, so it was bunkered into the hill, so it actually faces true north. So it has the existing technology at the time was, big thick stone walls dug into the hill to get your natural refrigeration or keep the wine cellar dark and cold and cool. It was built in 86, and in the first year out of the gate, they did 125,000 gallons year one. And to put that in perspective,
that's quite a lot of wine.
We've been here for 30 years, 35 years, so now we're doing about 80,000. So year one, they did more than we make after 30 years here. Yeah, it got to be the 4th largest winery in Napa Valley and 7th largest in the state within like 10 years. By 1890, it was a big deal.
It's astonishing that Montelena became such a large winery so fast, but then again, the focus was a little more on quantity rather than quality 100 years ago. But in the 1920s, the winery fell on hard times because of prohibition. They kept on farming, but they could only sell grapes to home winemakers who wouldn't pay a premium price for them. Eventually, the Tubbs family had to sell. The property was then purchased by the current owners, the Barrett family, who had some lofty goals for the winery.
Basically, my dad's concept was to expand upon that to make an American first growth.
So that was top
the
quality.
Rules, top quality, and there's no doubt at that time. Remember, this is 1972. Americans don't drink wine yet at all, hardly at all. There's a few handful of wineries in California. I mean, Californians drink California wine, but that's it. Everybody else that's in it. So we're gonna have this chateau in California that makes, Bordeaux-style Cabernet and white Burgundy-style Chardonnay. Those are the models.
Most people dismiss the business plan as totally unrealistic. Nobody was paying premium prices for California wine. What's more, most people laughed at the notion California could even produce excellent quality wine. But in 1976, all that changed. At the Judgment of Paris tasting, pitting California wines against Burgundy's finest, Château Montelena was ranked as the very best Chardonnay by a panel of highly respected French wine experts. What's more, it won by a landslide.
This Mike Gerges, this Croatian guy, and he's got his beret and everything, and he's out there dancing around and Yahoo and carrying on. It's, oh man, he's gone around the bend, So then he tells us, of course, then there's hoots and we were pretty stoked. And I don't think anybody at the time recognized how it would be such a big deal. That would, 30 years later, we'd still be talking about it. I don't think we knew it was a good deal. And what it did was it opened up the eyes of the Americans. Because you got to think about this. California, we were doing good in LA. The wines are great. There's some champions on the West Coast, San Francisco, Los Angeles, for California and American wines. But the rest of the country, we're not getting anywhere. Yeah. We're not getting anywhere with Chicago, New York, Boston. Nothing's happening. Paris tasting opened their eyes, and that opened up the market for the world.
And since then, Montelena's never looked back. The Barrett's dream of creating a Napa Valley first growth has been realized, and they are without question the benchmark winery of Calistoga, an AVA that they even helped create. Thousands of decisions go into making a bottle of outstanding quality wine, although Bo downplays the winemaking skill at his property and puts the emphasis on the vineyard's role.
And again, it's we're not doing heart surgery or saving the world. We're just our job is to make people's lives a little bit better one glass at a time. One thing I think that's important is that we're on the west coast of North America, so we have phenomenally good weather. We don't have a lot of rain during harvest, and we have an awful lot of sunlight. So basically, we're working in Cabernet, so it's not as herbal as you would get in a colder climate, say Bordeaux or any other state in the U.S. So it has a tremendous berry flavor that comes through in the aroma right off the bat. It's super ripe, kind kind of richness from the berries of our sun-driven fruit. We have a lot of light here. And then we talked about, remember the soils as complex soil types. So there's actually quite a few layers of different. And we also are very light-handed or deft in our use of oak. A lot of California wines are really big on 100% new wood. Right. And we typically use 20 to 25% because we want to, what's special, unique about Château Montelena is our vineyard. So that's what drives our wine.
Beau has been in charge of winemaking since 1982 and was working in the cellars for 10 years before that. Having so much experience and so much continuity in the key position of winemaker gives him a huge advantage. Plus the fact he's married to the queen of cult winemaking in Napa, Heidi Barrett.
We're really looking for a very elegant, balanced wine with lots of fruit, so there can be no place else. It's from Calistoga, Napa Valley. We want that sunlight to shine through and warmth, but we also have to have the elegance and finesse of the old school wine. So basically, simplest way to think about our wine is old school styling with California flavors.
Both the Cabernet and the Chardonnay are some of my personal favorites in Napa. They're consistently excellent quality. I also like the fact that Montelena cares for the environment. It's all solar powered. You'd think that the owner of such an iconic estate would be a really intimidating guy, but he couldn't be more down to earth and has some great advice when it comes to learning about wine.
Get a corkscrew, keep it sharp, and use it frequently. That's the best. And then follow your own palate. If you like it, good, you know? Yeah. That's it. So you can even see when there's a camera, I tend to talk fast. Which is, once I start drinking wine, I slow down, but then I mumble, and it gets even worse, you know. But yeah, Château Montelena, we are very much, have this magical place where we work, and when we won the Paris tasting, we had opportunity to sell out and to make more and to actually change our focus. We made Chardonnay and Riesling as cash flow wines. When we bought Château Montelena, it's 100 acres. And there was not a single Cabernet vine on the property, and it's a Cabernet property. So we had to replant everything. So in 72 and 74, we replant, and that's 5 years of growing grapes and 2 years of winemaking, 1 year of bottle age. So it's 7 years before you see a penny come back. And anybody who knows anybody's ever invested in a winery, the money goes away at a prodigious rate. Just first you buy a tractor, then you buy a disc and vines and barrels and bottles, and just money's going away. So to pay for that, we bought grapes, Chardonnay and Riesling, and we just had leading into our first course, our Chardonnay wines tonight, we just finished the Boyau tasting, and it's so amazing how we use the same tools that he does, but we have strategic advantages. In Burgundy, their strategic advantage is their soil, and each individual vineyard has complexity. In Napa Valley, we have to actually use different clones, and we have larger plantings, so we use the same tricks, whether it's batonnage or, you know, it was amazing tasting because we don't do malolactic in California, it's nice and warm. We never do batonnage, but we have to blend vineyards together to get the complexity. So I think you'll see a lot of parallels in the wine styling in the Chardonnay world, but it's pretty funny that, you know, 40 years later we're still talking about our cash flow Chardonnay. It was because actually what happened is the net result. I'll finish up. They're giving me the up here. Oh, okay. Here's the deal. If I never had to go and give another speech in the world, I'd be fine. I'd stay home and, you know, tend my vineyards and stuff like that. So then when they give you the rules, it's like I'm kind of a little Californian. Anyway. The Chardonnay was made You have to go back to 1972, as I said in there, where the rules and the standards and the bar to set were certainly the traditional European wines, and Émile Peynaud defined them, and we still make those wines. So when you see our wines today, you'll see we have 2 Chardonnays. What we decided to do is we make our Chardonnay to age also, so we have the first flight will be an older Chardonnay in Mag and a younger Chardonnay. So you can kind of compare and contrast the two as we go along.
Perfect. Thank you. And you will have much more time again at the end to tell us all about your wines and the Cabernet, but to honor the service and to let them serve the first course in the perfect condition. We'll take your seats now, and because this is going to be an amazing meal that will highlight your wines, I'm certain.
Okay.
And we'll have a chance to talk about the other wines as we come back.
Perfect.
Bon appétit à tous, et on vous revoit un peu plus tard.
Bonjour. Bonjour tout le monde. Je vais prendre juste quelques instants dans votre superbe dégustation de Montelena. Ça va prendre vraiment 3 minutes parce que c'est important pour moi de vous présenter le comité organisateur de Montréal Passion Vin, des gens qui se sont dédiés tout au cours de l'année et qui ont fait un travail remarquable. Évidemment, c'est moi à l'avant qui prends les félicitations, mais sachez que sans mon comité, je ne suis rien. Donc, j'aimerais les nommer et j'aimerais aussi qu'à la fin, vous preniez vos applaudissements seulement pour la fin, mais j'aimerais aussi que mes collègues puissent se lever lorsque je vais dire leur nom. Donc, j'aimerais commencer par M. Luc Béliveau, M. Richard Cachon, Maître Denis Chaurette, M. Moreno de Marchi, Mme Lucie Drapeau, M. Gilles Goulet, M. Gilles Jarry, M. Denis Leclerc, M. Jean-Charles Lima, M. Enzo Reda, M. Luc Rodrigue, M. Claude Roy, M. Daniel Simard et M. Michel Saint-Jean. Chers collaborateurs, merci à tous, vous êtes incroyables. C'est vraiment grâce à eux si on a cette Montréal Passion Vin, cette édition-là. Je vous remercie beaucoup, beaucoup. Et sans vous, les gars, je suis rien. Et les filles, merci.
No malolactic, no batonnage, only 10% new wood. It is aged on the fine lees for the 11 months, and it's bottled pretty much every August is when it's finished. And as we taste the aging of that Chardonnay, for us to get complexity, we have to use time. And very common in New World Chardonnay, we have to remember, most American winemakers' jobs make American wine for Americans. I live in a little world to make international style wine. So the American Chardonnay that you're used to, whether it's KJ or Ramba or whatever, they're pre-aged and they're finished. So you taste today how the aging does. 5 years ago, the older wine was also primary, like the 10 is now. So that's what we do. Chardonnay is Southern Napa Valley, but it's not the same as Burgundy. To get complexity, we have to use different tools in the winemaker's toolbox. So we use different clones on the same planting. So let's say it's an 8-acre field. It's all in clay, very uniform soil. So we'll use 3 different clones, a Dijon clone and a California clone. And so that's how we get the complexity. So I was talking to Michel Boyot, and it's like, our tools are the same, but it's how you apply them. It's just like any painter, you have a canvas and a box of paints. And he has the same tools I have, and it's how we apply them at the right place. So it's not so much in Napa Valley, for white wine especially, the soil, it's technique. That's what changes it in Napa Valley.
So, I think everybody appreciated the finesse and the elegance of the Chardonnays. On to the Cabernets. Could you explain to everybody the difference between the 2 flights we had, the Napa and the estate?
Yeah, the second flight, starting in reverse order, that's our flagship wine. That's the one that the 100 acres at the estate that we planted, and 75 acres of it are for this wine, the Château Montelena, the Montelena Estate Cabernet Sauvignon. But again, in California, what's good about making wine in the U.S. is there's not government restrictions on what you can do. And we can apply good ideas, because American winemaking is so dependent upon the development of the human effort of wine, and really the French wrote the book for us, and certainly the Europeans wrote the book. So what they have that's really cool in Burgundy is a village wine. It's like from their area. So taking that idea, we have the Calistoga American Viticultural Area, so Calistoga AVA, and it's really different than the rest of Napa Valley. Napa Valley is long and narrow, 26 miles long and a mile wide, but it also is not north-south. It runs at 300 degrees. I don't want to be too technical, but 300 north-northwest, and then in Sterling, it turns to 280, so it runs west. So what happens in October when the sun gets low, how the sun shines on the vineyards changes how the grapes get ripe. So Calistoga is traditionally one of the earliest ripening areas because it catches more sunlight than the rest of Napa Valley. And other southern Napa Valley, there's a lot more shade. So the Calistoga, the Napa Valley cuvee, or the Calistoga cuvee, is from 5 vineyards in Calistoga. It's a designed wine to actually be at a lunch like this. It's designed to be drunk fairly young in American. I hate to use the word like designer shaped because it's not as elegant as my French brothers here, but it's shaped to be drunk fairly young at lunch in American restaurants. So it has that really soft finish. So the vineyards grow 5 to 10 tons per acre. I wish. No, 3 to 5. So yeah, I think that's a faux pas, right? That's why we don't want me speaking French. No faux pas. I know it's faux pas. Anyway. So that wine, that's our only blend with Merlot. We have about we try to use 85% Cabernet in that, stick to about 11 to 14 on the Merlot, and 1 to 3 on the Cab Franc. Our Cab Franc, again, just like our tools are different. Our Merlot in Napa Valley doesn't do the same thing it does in Bordeaux. It does the same job, which is changes and complexes the Cabernet, but our Merlot is all front, ba-boom, and then kind of a harsh finish at the end. So it's like at positions 1, 2, 5. If there are 6 positions in a wine, 1, 2. So as you're tasting through the wine, as it opens up, you want to fill all 6 positions, like the whole idea of making a wine. So on our Napa Cab, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like so. Taste it, you'll see. That's shaping. It's like,
Sounds like
I know you don't know, like surfboards, does the shape make a difference? Yes, it makes a difference.
Mr. Barrett is a big surfer, for
Anyway,
those of you who don't know.
So that's the Napa Cab. We call it the little brother. It is the wine to come up. This is what Calistoga Cabernet is like. In Napa Valley, our mountain appellations start at 400 feet. So Diamond Mountain, Mount Veeder, Spring Mountain, how they define the AVA is at 400 feet and above. That's where the AVA starts. The bottom of Calistoga at the lowest point is 357. And so Château Montelena, we're farming at 500 to 800 feet. So basically, Calistoga, just to keep it simple, the whole region of Calistoga farms as an extension of the mountains. So you have all the concentration of power of the mountain vineyards, but some of the more conventional farming in the flatland and some of the elegance of the Napa Flora vineyards, like you would see at Oakville. So that's what Calistoga is all about, and that's what we're trying to define in this wine. And it does change vintage to vintage. We really like, the job is to capture the light in the land every year. So we'll let the 10 drift into a more supple, lower alcohol style. And then when you come into the 12 or 13, you'll see it's just going to be really nice, California. But the job at Montelena is a very weird niche, is that they have to be traditionally styled, which means 14 alcohol. And that's the main thing. Keeping the alcohol down, keeping the balance there, keeping the ageability there. Now the estate, that's a single vineyard wine. That's where we're using exactly the rules of our colleagues. It's like from this place, when you're standing at the winery and you look out at the vineyards, at the foot of how we got our name, I didn't even say that, Château Montelena. Okay, let me start over. Calistoga. What is Calistoga? So there's a hot springs there. In the 1880s, what's the most famous American hot springs? Saratoga, New York. So the founder of our town, his name is Sam Brannon, he's got this brandy distillery. So they're founding our town, and he's up there drinking his brandy. And he says, we are going to make this the Calistoga of California. And that's how our town got its name. And I think what happened at Montelena is they said, we need a cool name for this. I'm sure they didn't say cool in those days, but we need a nice, elegant name for this wonderful property. And they said, how about Château Mount St. Helena? And a few bottles of wine later, yeah, there's Château Montelena, is good stuff, you know. So I think that's how we got our name too. So,
are you telling us that everybody? Are you telling us that everybody in Calistoga has a propensity to drink a little bit?
Yeah, it's been known. So, but the estate Cabernet, this is what we do. This is the wine we were trying to make. So we tasted 94. By 94, we'd been making that wine since 78. So we're developing a pretty good styling where we're getting the California ripe fruit, but still with that elegance and finesse and a wine to age. Because one of the rules that we use is that to be a great wine, vin mondial, you have to have the wine to age. It has to reward those collectors that want to, age their wine and have it special. So all of our wines, they're made, we pack as much good stuff in the bottle as we can. So they're primary when they're young. And they're really strong and a little bit rough when they're younger. So when you taste the second Cabernet, say how young that is, even though that's not our current release, but you can still see it needs time. And that's what we do. We just live in this little corner of the world where we have this really good light, and we take the traditions of excellence and this high standards that have been set by our colleagues in France and Bordeaux and the long history of men and girls making wine. It's an amazing thing. And I like to finish up. It's like, I just finished my personal 41st vintage. I started in 73. We just finished the 2013. And people say, how can you still be fired up about what you do? Why are you so excited about making wine? Why is it so much fun? There's two reasons. The first is that the old American saying is probably translates to French, find a job that you would do for free and you'll never work a day in your life. That is my job. And more importantly here, think about my job. It got me here, got us together, and as I said to the film, we're here actually to cure cancer, which is funny. I actually see you say, hey, this isn't rocket science, we're not curing cancer, we're not doing anything great in the world, we're just making people's lives a little bit better, one glass at a time. And I find that a noble career.
Thank you very, very much for the amazing wines. It was just beautiful to see le 94, la magnifique jeunesse de ce vin, mais de voir la différence avec une quinzaine d'années d'âge. Le profil aromatique de ce vin-là est absolument magnifique. C'est vrai, quand on goûte le 2009, on est sur la force brute de la jeunesse, mais de voir comment ils évoluent dans le temps. Oui, la Californie fait des grands vins qui peuvent bien se tenir et évoluer de façon absolument remarquable. Mr. Barrett was telling me how there's a lot of California wines that are still made for what he was calling cocktail drinkers, right? Those big monsters at 16% alcohol. And I was saying, are there really people that still want that in the States? He says, yeah, there's a lot of. And so thank you, Mr. Barrett, for...
The Chardonnay ones, we call them cougars, super cougars.
But thank you very much for making such beautiful wines that we enjoy drinking. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Let's give it up for her, man. Like, perfect. You're the best.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett. Thank you so much. Thanks for your generosity. Yeah.
A big round of applause for Mr. Bo Barrett. Yes, thank you very much for this one experience, Mr. Barrett. And thanks for your generosity. It will greatly help our cause. What? Tell me. California style, eh?
Here we go.
You have the last word. Yeah, wear it.
No, I'm gonna give it to you. You need
No, not for me. Okay, let's do this. I need the wig as well. There you go. California dreaming, baby.
That is the Calistoga High School Wildcats baseball hat. That's for my buddy here.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm going to keep this for the maybe not for the rest of the day. Thank you. OK, donc j'aimerais vraiment remercier aussi M. Denis Leclerc. Où est M. Denis Leclerc? La main dans les airs, M. Leclerc. Le Fonds de solidarité FTQ et SSQ, groupe financier, qui nous a aidés énormément. Et ne quittez pas parce que ça me prend des mains d'applaudissements pour le chef Mathieu Cloutier, copropriétaire, et sa brigade qui nous a fait un travail exceptionnel. S'il vous plaît, une bonne main d'applaudissements.
Merci. Merci.
The wine pairing was amazing because of these guys. Thank you very much. Donc, maintenant, nous allons passer à l'autre salon pour une dégustation, si je peux m'exprimer ainsi, toute sainte-émilianaise. Ça va être fantastique. Clos Saint-Martin ainsi que Château Angélus. On se voit tantôt. Merci beaucoup pour tout. Merci de votre générosité. À tout à l'heure.